Good morning to everyone. Before the official opening of this conference, I want to tell you a little story. My first contact with smalltalk was in 1992 when I attended a conference of program given by the professor of the University of Facultad. There, in that conference, I met Alejandro Remoto, and a few years later, he introduced me to dia1. They were the founders of the smalltalk user group of Argentina. They had the great idea, to hold meetings, small meetings, to talk about smalltalk. And in this same place, in 1998, Alejandro Remoto, dia1, and a group of Matt Stone of dia1 came here to present Swift, a version of smalltalk, and Macmore, a set of mathematical objects created by dia1 and its students. It was really a great meeting, and I want to believe, I like to believe that it was the seed of the conference that now we call like smalltalks. Probably that's not the truth. Leandro was the founder of us, the smalltalk, and in 2007 he held a conference at the University of Buenos Aires. That was the first conference of smalltalk, and now we are here. We are very pleased to hold this conference, and personally, I think that it's a way to form the circle, to achieve a milestone of this long journey. Really, we are very pleased that this year we are hosting this conference. I want to thank you to the faculty, the organizing committee, to choosing us to help this, to hold this conference. Y ahora voy a agradecer en español. Quiero fundamentalmente, bueno, primero agradecer al profesor de FAS por elegirnos. Quiero agradecer a la decana de la Facultad de Ingeniería, Ana Sánchez, al vicedecano Francisco Álvarez, al director del Departamento de Informática, Carlos Rico, a la directora del Departamento de Matemática, Gabriela Cicineo, al secretario académico Gustavo Zabaleta, quien realmente me facilitó muchísimo las cosas con el tema de las aulas, a Natalia Barteles, secretaria de extensión, con la difusión del evento, fundamentalmente a todos aquellos que en el primer momento apoyaron esta iniciativa. Así que también poder hacer esto en nuestra casa. Así que, bueno, tanto profesores, asistentes de cátedra, etc., colegas, amigos, sobre todo, les agradezco muchísimo que esto ya sea una realidad. Muchas gracias a todos, y ahora sí, la inauguración oficial de la conferencia.
Bueno, voy a hablar en castellano, español. Bueno, para la facultad es un enorme orgullo tener esta conferencia y ser los anfitriones. Espero que se sientan cómodos en su casa. Sé que hay visitantes de Estados Unidos, de Brasil, de otros lugares de Argentina, de Europa. La Facultad de Ingeniería de Mar del Plata forma ingenieros en 10 disciplinas distintas, desde la química, la electrónica, la informática. Es una de las carreras más jóvenes que tenemos, pero ustedes saben que en Argentina representan hoy un caudal importantísimo de estudiantes que están eligiendo la informática como carrera y como terminal. Así que para nosotros, como gestores actuales de la facultad, es un desafío importante poner esta carrera con todo el equipamiento y las necesidades de recursos humanos y edificios que necesita. Así que bueno, creo que todo esto se hace en un momento y en un contexto difícil para nosotros, por el tema del cambio, por la compra de equipamiento, porque los recursos humanos también se están yendo, así que para nosotros es un enorme placer que ustedes hayan elegido a la Facultad de Ingeniería de la Universidad de Mar del Plata para este evento. Así que bueno, bienvenidos, hay buen tiempo en Mar del Plata, días de calor, y utilicen toda la playa. Gracias.
Hello, it's good. Well, as everyone said, welcome to the smalltaks conference. This is the 16th time we did this conference, as Francisco showed, we started in 2007. So I don't want to take that amount of time, so I would just like to comment a little some of the details about the conference. The first one is that the talks obviously will be in English, even though we have exceptions. So we did, for those that don't know, we did 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, in Spanish for students, so that they can get up to speed with smalltalk. And also, I think for teachers as well, so that both teachers and students can learn a little bit smalltalk before actually joining the conference, right? But again, most of the talks will be in English. I think all of them this year will be in English. I would like to thank the Universidad Nacional de Mar del Plata, all of the authorities, Francisco. We got really good, a lot of help from the very beginning when we talked to Francisco about the idea. He was very helpful, and he had all of the backup he needed from the university. So that's very nice. And also, it's a nice city. We like to be here. We were looking also for us it would be easier to do it in Buenos Aires, right? but we believe it's important to promote small talk across the country. So even if it's more difficult for us, we believe it's important to go to the different places in Argentina. So that's why we try to find a balance between doing conferences in Buenos Aires and in other provinces, or even other cities, like in this case, Mar del Plata. So thanks all of the local organizers. Obviously we have Francisco, but I'm sure he also got a lot of help. We have people in the registration table, all of the authorities of the university. I don't like to put names because I'm sure I will mention a lot of people and that wouldn't be fair for them. But as general thanks to all the local organizers, it's really impossible to do a conference if you don't have a local person helping with the setup. So thank you for that. I would like to also thank all of our sponsors, which again, without the sponsors, this wouldn't be possible because this is what allows us to have the conference free, which is one of our principles. We want the conference to be free. We have coffee breaks, which require some budget. We have the recordings of the talks. So all of that is possible thanks to our sponsors and also as well to all the people that donated. So we have a lot of contributors, individual contributors. It's not just the t-shirt. It really helped us in the same way that our sponsors help us. For the t-shirts, you probably saw the registration is only available if you donated, because we cannot give t-shirts for everybody without the donation. And that's always been like that. I also wanted to thank the FAST members that they have been working on this conference for many months at this point. Even if you come here and it looks like something simple to do, I promise it requires a lot of time, a lot of energy. Maxi, Gabi, Hernan, they all put a lot of their own personal time for this. So thanks to them. And finally, FAST is not the FAST board is not the only one that helped to the organization. We have other people that help with the banners, with the social dinner, the registration table. Again, I don't want to mention names. We have people that help with the t-shirt payments. We receive a lot of help. So you know who you are, so thank you for helping us. And in that sense, something that I think is important is that I would like to make it clear that this is not our conference, this is not FAST conference, this is your conference. So if you like it, you can always help. My personal advice would be that you don't need to give it for granted that there will always be a small talk and someone doing the conference for you. So we always appreciate help. There are little things that can be done. Don't be shy. If there's anything that you think you could help, we are always welcome that help, even for a small task, like grabbing the microphone and go around if someone has questions, or helping with the social dinner payments, or the t-shirts, or whatever. There are a lot of the registration table. There are a lot of tasks where we would appreciate some help. So not only for this conference, but for the upcoming conference, this is something that we very much appreciate. So if you notice in the future conference that you could help, that would be awesome. About FAST, for those that are not aware, for the new people, FAST is a non-profit organization. The goal obviously is to promote small talk in Argentina. One of the things we do is the small talk conference, but that's not the only one that we can do. we're always open for ideas, and we will get that in a second. Currently, the FAST organization is composed by a board of members, and our president is Hernan Wilkinson, our executive secretary is Maximiliano Tabacman, I am the treasurer. That's a little bit of the internal detail, but you know, we all do a lot of things, just that's the official layout. So as I was saying earlier, we would like to promote Smalltalk. Smalltalk is one of the things that we can do, but we're always looking for ideas on how we can promote this even further. So again, if you have ideas, you would like to organize a workshop, you need funding to put some videos online, or you need funding help for something related to promoting Smalltalk in Argentina, come talk to us. It won't mean immediately that we will be able to do it, but at least we would like to listen, to hear about it, and see if this is something that we can do. So if you have those ideas, please come talk to us. So now a little bit about these Smalltalks in particular this year. So we have around 100 registered participants, but we know that since this is a free conference, some people just register and then they don't attend. So we know that there is a percentage of attendees that don't actually get. Some go one day, but not all of the days. Sometimes students register, but then they put a lot of exams in the middle of the week and they need to stay at home and study. So, but we have a decent amount of registered participants this year. We have 3 days of talks with the 2 days of the pre-small talk that I already mentioned, Monday and Tuesday, for students and teachers in Spanish. We have 2 invited speakers this year, and I will get there in a second. And then we have the social dinner, which I will talk in a little bit also. So for the invited speakers, I really wanted to thank these 2 amazing guys, Johan and Norbert. They came from a long distance. Johan is from Belgium, Norbert is from Germany. They were cool enough to come here. They're really enjoying. I tried to fill them with asados and Malbecs, so they're happy. But it still was a long trip for them. They are super cool guys. Don't be shy. Go talk to them. They know a lot of Smalltalk. They contribute to a lot of open source projects. And what is interesting about this, both of them, is that they also understand the business aspect of Smalltalk. Both of them have a lot of business experience with Smalltalk. So it's not that they are just holistic, but they can pay the bills with Smalltalk. So each of them will present 2 talks. So that will be pretty good, so thank you. For the social dinner, we have booked this place called Vista Norte for tomorrow. The only thing is that the registration was closed yesterday. That's why we tried to market about it as much as we could in our social channels, via email, because we needed to get the restaurant the number by Sunday. So that's why it's already too late, but we did our best so that everybody could have the time to register. Now, in the website, there is a payment link with Mercado Pago. If you didn't pay already, please pay in advance with Mercado Pago. If you need to pay in cash, maybe because you are foreign and you don't have Mercado Pago, come talk to me, you can pay in cash to me. But if you can do it via Mercado Pago, that would be easier. Again, the link is on the website.
Will you pay with Mercado Pago to pay with cash, or will you keep the cash?
I will keep the cash.
Okay.
Not for me, for fast.
Great. We trust you.
Yeah, I'm the treasurer. Okay, so a few notes for the speakers. As usual, try not to go beyond your time. That's not something new, it's something obvious. Try your machine. So in the coffee breaks, bring your machine here, try the HDMI, double check everything's working fine. And do that before your talk, obviously, if you can. I recommend giving some minutes for questions, so don't estimate your presentation 30 minutes, because otherwise you won't have time for questions. So if you could, aim for 25 minutes or something, so that you can give a couple of minutes for questions. And lastly, if you're not used to do presentations, I strongly recommend that you try. Don't use dark themes, they don't look good in beamers. Try to use light themes or high contrast colors if possible. If you are doing a live demo where you will be showing code, etc., I recommend you go at the back of the room and double check that you can read the font. So do that when you're testing your machine. Also double check that the guys at the back can read your fonts correctly, because there's nothing worse than a live demo where you cannot even see nothing. And I've seen millions of presentations like that. So please check that for your own convenience. So the talks will be recorded as usual. They will be uploaded to YouTube, so that a lot of people can actually watch the presentations later. The only thing I would like to add here is that we talked with our photographer, well, the videographer, and he recommended us to, if you are gonna be talking, you probably stay in this area. If you start to go, there's too much bright there. So it would be easier if you kind of stay around this area. It would be a better quality. That's what they told us. That's in case you move a lot, try to stay in this area. The social channels, if you want to help us promote the conference, we recommend using that hashtag. If you are using, well, Twitter, I said Twitter, or X now, or Facebook. We also have a WhatsApp community and a WhatsApp group where people can discuss. We can organize dinner if you want to hang out together after the conference, details about the conference, questions. So you can join that WhatsApp group, which is just for this particular conference. Now, for more long-term engagement, we recommend that you join our Slack channel. It's called the Buenos Aires Smalltalk. It's a Slack channel, is that? Server. Okay, it's a Slack server. Where we have around 200 members. Actually we have both people, Spanish-speaking people, but we also have some people externally. So you will see that we are mixing Spanish with English, depending on who is discussing in Slack. We have multiple channels for a lot of different topics. So if you are not there, I recommend you. It's a friendly place where you can talk. Okay, so the Wi-Fi details for this room, the network is Magna, the password is Ingeniería. So I can give you a second to write it down if you want. Or take a picture and then you can connect. Okay? always, you can always ask me if you need this information again. So, I mean, for Argentinians this is obvious, but remember this is a public place, and while everybody tries to do their best to protect your belongings, you need to look after don't, common sense, just common sense. And finally, as always, we are looking for a venue to do a Smalltalks 2025. Of course, we would like a nice city like Plata, but that's not always possible. So, whatever idea you have, if you have someone that you know, even if Smalltalk is not teach in the university, we can still, like for example, here I think that's the case, but we have Francisco, which help us. So, if you have ideas, just let us know. We can get in contact to the different universities. So, just let us know if you have ideas. And that's it. I don't have any other important detail, but I'm open to questions that you may have about the conference. If not, we can just start with the fire. Okay, let's start.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yeah. Hello, sir, apparently. Okay. Hi, my name is Johan Brichot, so I just thought I'd put up a small slide about who I am, very short bullet points. First, I've been doing Smalltalk since 1999, basically after graduating from university. Did 10 years at university using Smalltalk for research projects on software engineering. So I did my PhD there, and after finishing the PhD, you're always looking what would I do next, and for me it was more interesting to do some business with Smalltalk. So I got the opportunity there 15 years ago. Started YesPlan, of which I will talk actually Friday, which is a SaaS application for event venue management. So it's Seaside, but apart from that, YesPlan is the largest company that I was involved with, but there's also Orderflow, which is a more local application using same technology in Belgium, and there's also No Risk, but that was not a commercial success, for example. And I'm also then, since we're using Seaside, I'm now also taking care of the Seaside project since many years. And yeah, this is my first Smalltalks conference, and thank you, FAST, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. I hope I hope this will be one of the many to come, right? So definitely looking forward to that. So I will first be talking about what I call this modern web application architectures with Seaside. Right? So what do I mean? Well, I don't know, but I guess lots of people know Seaside, but let me ask the question, who knows Seaside? So raise your hand. Okay, so most of the people, so I will really be very, very brief about that. But yeah, we know that Seaside is, for me, the server-side web framework for Smalltalk, and it is one of the primary characteristics of Seaside is that you can encode the control flow or the flow of a person going through your application as a natural flow, mapping this onto calls, like procedure calls. It's component calls and returning from those component calls. So people moving from one page to another page, mapping this more naturally onto the concept of calls in your code. Very important in C-side is, of course, that everything in your pages are built as a composition of reusable components, or intent where you can reuse your components, of course. Another thing which is there, of course, we do programmatic HTML generation. There's a jQuery integration, which is heavily used, as I will be showing, and yeah, so we have 3 major supported platforms: VASP, Faro, and Gemstone. So, okay, so what was C-side originally developed for is what I would say the classic multi-page architecture. We build applications which are static web pages, not static web pages, they are web pages, and your user goes through an application by clicking on a link, going to the next page, and going further, so filling in a form, clicking a button, or whatever is happening. But you're basically generating an HTML page and guiding your user through different pages. And an application is built as a collection of interconnected web pages. That's classic C-side, and that's where it was designed for. I don't know if I sometimes tell me if I shouting in the microphone. I have a tendency to. So this is for me, it's a simple architecture. It's easy to implement. It's all the logic is on the server, and that's the advantage. Me as a coder, it's more easy to develop this application. But for a user, this full-page navigation using modern web applications, that's not the thing you want, and I will be showing a little bit later. So if people don't want this, they're building single page web applications with more on the same page changing partial updates, they would move away from this server-side rendering and server-side generated web pages. So you won't be using any C-side basically. Your server will be an API, REST API serving JSON, and you will be implementing your entire application using something that runs in your browser. Modern web frameworks, React, Vue, Angular, and many others. But this is a disadvantage there, is that oftentimes you're dividing your application between client and server, and also different languages. So you will be replicating and dividing your application logic between two different parts. The advantage is you have dynamic and partial page updates. You have more like an application running in your browser. And most of the time, of course, you can use C-side in this context, but you will only be using the REST API implementation. So you will be using the things that C-side is known for. And that's a stateless server API, which is coming back later. I would say, well, I want to go not entirely this direction and drop C-side and just use the REST framework, for which you don't really need C-side. But my argument here is to say, well, we can do hybrid web architectures and combine actually best of both worlds. Still have C-side producing the HTML from the server, so completely server-side rendering. So entire application logic in C-side. And then you can find some client-side components which you want to use and you don't want to re-implement, and they need to run in the browser. For example, a date picker that's easier that you just use a component and you use this as part of your web page instead of having always the client-server round trip when you would click on one next date to use. You don't want that. But we do want a single-page experience with a multi-page architecture. So that's basically what I want to demonstrate here. So that's very short. I will not elaborate the argument. But for me, this multi-page or hybrid architecture is what you could call the server-side rendered single-page applications, and building them with C-side. And we will be using different technologies there. I mean, jQuery is the stuff which we've been using for more than 15 years in this context. But I will actually be showing how to transition this to using Hotwire, which is then actually re-establishing the normal control flow or the advantages you have of C-side. Because jQuery scripts, and I've been doing a lot of them over the past 15 years, in the easy examples, they look nice, and they will show nice and easy examples. But if you have a lot of them, it becomes really tedious and complex to maintain. While maybe going to Hotwire will actually be a lot easier. So I have two example web applications I will show you, and we will gradually introduce all these techniques in there to see how that looks like. So I have a beach shop application, maybe not the most attractive one, but okay, this is a web shop, right? So a web shop lists stuff to buy, and I want to browse through different articles on my reset. Yeah. All right. Good. So I have different articles to buy. There's a website here. I can start going through things here, and this is built using traditional C-site. So full page navigation. You will see things you don't want to have when you're using a web shop, but that's part of the argument, right? So I have the list of all my articles here, and I will say, okay, I will buy this mat. I click it, and of course this is full page navigation, so the thing jumps to another page, and I'm back at the top. So I'm scrolling back to the top. Not really nice, but that was the easy thing to implement the C-site, and then I can add it to the cart. Of course, again, I jump to the top, but then I have my cart here updated. And this is, of course, full page navigation. The easy way to implement something in C-site, but not the way you really want it to behave, of course. Same thing here, I have a search function, and every time I type, I will actually go to a new page. Definitely not the thing you want to be seeing, but it does work. If I'm searching for a tent, I will actually filter for a tent. So that's an easy way to implement this. Another example is the to-do application here. It means the same thing. I have complete only using C-site, basic things and in-place editing. I'll just change this here, or changing it. And it's not really visible because the page doesn't have a scrolling, but this is full page updates all the time again, so you will have the same disadvantage. So that's using it as a very simple way to implement this. And we know this is a composition of components. So I have my webshop application, and inside of my webshop category list component, I have this method to render the buy action, which is the one when I click on the basket with the list of items. So this is using the traditional C-site. I'm having a callback, and well, there's a self-show there. I could also use self-call, basically more or less the same in this example. But then I'm jumping to replacing it with another component. So I call out, and I click on my buy button. I will replace my listing component with the single component where I can update the number and then finally put it in my basket. So add it to my cart. That's the way we implement this in C-site. I'm jumping to this other subroutine part of the page, and then I will actually answer when I say, well, I have it now, I want it, adding it to my cart. And that's an easy way to implement it, but of course the result is that you see that you have full page navigation in C-site. And for this web shop, it's not a thing you would want to have. Same thing for the searching. This would be the code for searching. It's a simple form, and just a little bit of JavaScript there. It's just that on every input you will trigger the form submission, which means that you generate exactly the new page, and you filter using that search term when you're showing your cards. And that's a simple implementation. So that's the idea. I want to actually have this simple implementation, but not have the disadvantages of full page navigation using traditional C-site. So how do I fix this? Well, we've been doing this for more than 15 years. We would be saying, well, we use jQuery. In C-site, we have the jQuery and a very nice jQuery integration. So instead of using full page re-rendering, I will introduce a couple of scripts there which will only do partial Ajax updates of my page, of course. So that's what we will be doing. And actually, in this example, it looks really simple, because I just have to, for the search, for example, I just have to replace, and I'll show but you have the on input element there. Instead of just doing the form submission, well, you will actually trigger the serialization of the form and just only update the part of the page where the list of components is shown. The list of webshop items is shown. So that actually is not too difficult, and it looks like really easy to do this with jQuery. For example, here in the to-do list, you could do this in jQuery, the web shop, but I'll just jump to the to-do list here. For example, I have a really large to-do list in this case, right? So if you would do full page re-rendering of this one, it also will take a lot of time and have a very bad performance. So that's actually the reason why you often will go to partial page updates. And this is the to-do application implemented with jQuery, and you have a callback for every item would also be very slow, so you have more complexities introduced in this jQuery, but I do have on double click, I can edit one, I can do this one, and this is actually using jQuery. But this becomes complicated. This becomes tedious in the end to maintain, because this is the example how you should introduce the jQuery element to do the in-place editing of a to-do item. You can do it more simple, but that would mean you have to generate a callback for every to-do item, and that will never stop. It goes very, very slow. So you have to, I'll try to explain it, but it's tedious to maintain, and you have many different scripts coming all over the place. In the end, it becomes too difficult to follow. So, what we'll be proposing as a solution is using Hotwire. So there, we try to maintain the natural code flow. So I try to implement, or I implement my application using the natural flow, the natural way of implementing this in C-side. But we do not have full page re-rendering, and we still have the partial page updates being taken care of by the Hotwire framework. So, what is Hotwire? It is a client-side framework which will augment your server-side rendered pages. You actually just need to add attributes to your HTML markup, and this client-side library will interpret them and do something. And what it does, what it will be using, is of course to implement the single-page behavior. It actually comes from the Ruby on Rails community, so they also have server-side rendered applications, and normally this would also be full-page re-rendering, and then they introduced this framework. But it's agnostic to what you use on the backend, so you can use it with any backend framework. So we integrate this with C-side, and the part we will be showing is the Turbo part, because if you go take a look at the Hotwired website, you will see that's Turbo and there's Stimulus. And Stimulus is basically allowing you to add additional behavior in execution in the browser, while Turbo is the one which you integrate with your backend framework. So, how does this actually work? So I will just first show it, show how it works. So I have my beach shop application here again. I have this menu where I will turn on Hotwired. I have to refresh to make it load the JavaScript library. But now I'm actually back to implementing it in exactly the same way as before, so no jQuery. And I have my application. I can push the buy button here. And only this part was actually being updated when I clicked on it. Same thing when I do the add to cart. And you noticed I didn't scroll, so that's the way you see it, of course, in this small application. I updated this part and I jumped back to my list. And this implementation, back here, this implementation actually uses the same way of implementing it as with traditional C-side, or almost the same way, you will see. So if I have my webshop application here, I have my shopping cart component, which was on the top, and I also have my category list, which lists all the possible items to buy from my shops. What I need to identify in my application is the parts of my page that I want to have updated, so you can identify, and that's what they call turbo frames. And in C-side, what we did is we added, you just use a decorator to decorate your existing components. You wrap them in a decorator, a turbo frame decorator, and that means C-side knows this part of the web page will actually have to be only this part will need to be updated if you will execute an action from within this component. That's the standard behavior. So what it looks like to the Hotwired library running in the client is that the HTML produced by this component is just wrapped inside of a turbo frame. So inside of the turbo frame HTML markup. And whenever you have a link inside of that, it will make a request to the C-side, to your server, and will only update that part when it returns inside of the turbo frame. So that means that turbo frames are just these independent pieces of your application which need to be updated, which you previously would do with a jQuery and doing this manually in your scripts. But while it would work having a full page rendering on the server, C-side is optimized to actually only re-render the part inside of the turbo frame. So you have the advantage of the performance advantage of only rendering that specific part. Because Hotwire can say, well, I'm just sending the request back to the server, it gets the full page back, and it will actually extract this turbo frame again and only update that part of the page. but we optimize its C-side to only return the turbo frame. So it will walk the component tree and only re-render that. That's of course important, otherwise you will leave the stuff back on the server. And this is the default behavior. Whenever I click inside, so this is actually wrapped in a turbo frame. Whenever I click here, it will only update that part of my application. But there's others. I have first. When you put animations on your slides, you should. Anyway, so this is the implementation using Hotwire, right? And it looks exactly the same. The only thing is, instead of using call or show, I use turbo call and turbo show, which basically is the same thing. It just means that when the component you instantiate and you pass to turbo call or turbo show, it will automatically wrap it inside of the decorator. So it will automatically decorate it with a turbo frame decorator. But you see, actually, the flow is completely the same. I don't have to implement. In the simple examples I showed here, these are easy jQueries you would replace it with, but often, and all the applications I've written, they become quite complex and tedious. So here, it's actually exactly the same thing as writing a traditional or classic C-side application. But we do have all the properties of a single page web application with partial page updates. Now, there's of course these cases. The example, or the basic one, is that when you execute an action from within a turbo frame, it will only update that turbo frame, but that's not enough, right? You often want to update different parts of your page. And that's where turbo stream callbacks come in. When I clicked on here on Add to Cart, I don't only need to update this part of the page back to show the list, but I also need to update my cart, right? And instead of reverting them to a full page update, you will do an update of different turbo frames on your page. And that's done with a turbo stream callback, which allows you to replace, remove, append, prepend pieces on your web page, just like you also have these not primitives but functions with jQuery, right? So you would just add them in the same way. Only here it's done completely declarative. So what happens in going from my single product show when I click on the Add to Cart, so this is a piece of code that is done when you click on the Add to my shopping cart, it will replace, on answering, it will replace it again with the component that called it, so my web shop category list. But it will also replace the cart which is in the navigation menu. And so instead of writing a simple callback, you have this turbo stream callback, which gives you an argument where you can push all these changes to. And in this case, for example, I'm saying, and I have to pass an identifier in this case, an ID of my webpage, but replace the navigation menu with rendering the menu again. So then you can identify all the pieces you want to update on your webpage, and you can stream it to your client, to your browser. Here's another example of using, and this is in the to-do application. So when I go to the to-do application with Turbo, this is exactly the same. So we're using Turbo with exactly the same implementation as traditional C-side, but it has partial page updates. Difficult to see here, but everything, all the functionality works. You have place editing, and for example, the destroyer here is of course there you need to just remove the component. If I destroy this component, I don't want to replace it with something else. Maybe the hack would be to replace it with an empty turbo frame, but the cleaner and nicer ways to say to C-side, well, actually, I'm removing this component from my my rendering tree. How much time do I have left? Oh, I have no time. All right.
You said 5 minutes later, so 5 minutes. I
have 5 minutes. All right, that's exactly what I mean. Thank you very much. So that's the, and here I'm doing a turbo string, but I'm removing the component. That's the part about Hotwire, but I also use a lot of, some parts we say, well, I don't want to do server-side rendering. It doesn't make sense. I have this entire library of things I can find on the web, and okay, it's written in JavaScript, but it's exactly what I need. For example, a date clicker, I gave us an example. You don't want to re-implement a date clicker, you just want to use the date clicker. I've been using the data picker from jQuery UI and afterwards Airbnb, just integrated. Another example I have in the web shop here is that, okay, I went to this library of React components, and instead of listing all the things to buy just in a large list on my web page, I wanted this carousel. It wants to work, probably it doesn't. Maybe it's broken because I don't have. Okay, but this is I'll show it in the. So this component I found in this React components, and it's showing me very dynamically how the web shop is organized, and I'll show it here. It's going to be easier. So I can activate it here in my. I'll refresh it just to make sure that I don't have any emo. But this is then, instead of showing me the entire website as a long list on the page, it's more dynamically, and I can click on this, and I don't have to implement anything because there's a React component doing that for me. How do I integrate this with Seaside? Well, in this case, you will have to call and instantiate the React component and pass a JSON to that React component, but making it part of your server-side rendered application. So in this case, I really don't want the client-server round trip, and I want to reuse these components. So for example, how this works, and of course, I'm just rendering, instead of rendering HTML, you're rendering a script where you call out the instantiation of this React component and you pass it the configuration in JSON. And you have all the elements in Seaside to do so. So I think many people doing lots of Seaside see here, but this is normal, this is what you need to do. So I just wanted to show that. That's what it looks like, right? You just create a dictionary, which would be the JSON configuration to pass on to the React component. Has everything you need, and you just instantiate, or you create a script where you create this carousel in this case. The only thing that many people then don't see is that you can just pass an URL for a block for a callback, because that's what I need to do. I need to pass to this carousel exactly the URL to go and send back to Seaside when I click inside of my carousel on the element mentioned which I clicked on, because the generation of the HTML happens in React or on the browser. I don't have any control, but I can pass it arguments. The React component needs to have this possibility, of course, otherwise you're not possible to do it. I can pass this URL, and I can just grab the URL and for a callback. So in this case, we show the single product item. This is something I pass on in a JSON dictionary, and it will be used in the generation of the HTML. All right, so one final thing I would say, Seaside is a stateful framework, and actually the advantages of Seaside is very much to do with being completely stateful, as set in your components. Also, Hotwired relies on being stateful because it needs to know which components are there. There's quite some requests or quite some views on, okay, how can I go stateless? Because many times I write pieces of my web page which I don't require state, and I want to scale more horizontally. For example, the web shop, I want to really go towards many users and be very rich, selling lots of beach items. But in that case, I will need to scale horizontally, and that having a state on your server makes it more difficult because you need to have requests going to your server where the state is maintained, right? Instead of having to reconstruct it all the time. So just as an initial idea, I implemented actually exactly the same, or possibility in Seaside is you can, of course, use the Seaside REST framework not to generate JSON, but just generate HTML. And you have to implement it a little bit yourself, but it's actually quite easy, so you can easily generate this entire same component, because it's the same component. I just leave out the generation or even callbacks, of course, but this is the same component. I have a status web application, people can see my web app, and I don't create any session. But at some point, you might want to start creating a session, and so the ability to create and start a session here is that when the person starts the buy button, you say, well, I initiate the session, and from that point on, you actually start running the state. So also these things, but it's not quite elaborated yet in Seaside, so there's maybe some more support we want to introduce there. So just as a wrap-up, because my 5 minutes are now completely depleted, so I just showed you a couple of things on how to use Seaside in a more modern web architecture context, and that means single web page application behavior. Normally Seaside is for multi-page classic going through different stages in your website. But using jQuery, you already did lots of things to do partial page updates, but for me this becomes tedious. So Hotwire is a solution there. Or if you don't want to use or you don't want to have a client server around you can integrate many of the existing components, whether it would be React or something else inside of your application. And then you have stateless, you can do C-side REST. So there's more things to elaborate there on the stateless part. But yeah, as a C-side REST framework, we already have pieces of the puzzle lying around. That's what I wanted to tell you. So thank you for listening. Any questions?
How does it integrate with security? Because I noticed that like your trigger frames and things like that communicating between them, it seems like there could be potentially insert code on the page that could make it, let's say you have a commerce website using that page and you have, the button to add, a card, and it would insert the card. And what sort of facilities do you have to secure that? For example, if you have a purchase limit on a particular product, you're trying to protect it from adding more than 5 to the card, and they did that, I mean, you can technically edit the page to, circumvent that or something.
Well, I would say in this case it's actually easier because the entire logic is completely on the server, so it'll remain there. While you will always, even if you go, if you would be using jQuery or anything else, or you would do the REST API, you would need to validate. On your server whether you can buy 5 items or you can buy more or less. But the thing is that if you separate the logic, and that's the thing, what we needed to do, for example, is you also need to have a nice customer or a client or a user experience in saying, well, you cannot buy more than 5, and that often ends up writing behavior in your web browser itself, but you will always need to validate what happens on your server. So when you come in with the argument saying, I want to buy 5, there's no 5, you cannot, well, then you cannot.
Well, I use that as an example because obviously more sinister things. So more sinister things with
of course.
Yeah, but that's.
Good. It actually falls back to the same security mechanisms you have in C-side for protection against cross-site scripting and everything else. So, and that's standard in C-side because we do programmatic HTML generation. And whenever you would have something coming in, it will always escape it by standard. So we actually fall back to the existing security mechanisms and not complicate it even more. That's what.
Okay, thank you.
I want to learn about the Hotwire. It's something that already existed, it's something that you are implementing. I'm not sure if the wrappers you showed were something that you programmed on top of existing framework, or if you're maintaining Hotwire, or which parts of the code or something that's a smalltalk project that you could download and try, or if you're just showing what you're using internally.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the question. The Hotwire is made by the Ruby on Rails community. It's part of, they're also the same solution to having partial page updates and more single page application behavior inside of a Ruby application. But the Hotwire is the JavaScript library you need to load in your web browser, and that will interpret all the attributes you put on the generated HTML it gets from the server. So it's server-side agnostic. What I did is implement the integration with C-side. First integration is easy. You just have to add all the possible attributes to drive Hotwire. But then mapping the call and show and the answer mechanism onto this action of clicking a link inside of a component, that's then the integration of that in C-side. So you can just download it, part of C-side. If you would install it right now, you would have to install the packages as an addition because it's in a preview phase. I'm still allowing myself to change lots of the API. But the example of the to-do application, for example, is in there. You can take a look at how it's implemented. I will also probably add the lead shop application when I clean up my code a little bit more to show it as a demonstrator. So the integration of the Hotwire framework with C-side is the thing I'm adding. Hotwire is something which comes from the Ruby on Rails.
You mentioned that you need C-side applications to be stateful in order to have Hotwire.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, why is that?
Oh, it's just because I mapped the call and answer mechanism onto the fact of doing turbo frame updates, and I mean that basically means you need to have both states there. Yeah, so I mean the Hotwire itself, because it's built with Ruby on Rails, which is stateless, so it's not in a conceptual conflict. It's just that me integrating it into C-side, integrating it with the core features of C-side means you integrate it with the stateful features. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Más o menos. ¿Reproduzco? Sí. Recién escuchaba. Claro, lo digo no se puede poner un poco más fuerte.
Levanta un poco el volumen de ahí.
No puedo levantarlo de acá, no me deja. Bueno, no te da problema, no pasa nada.
Ahí te doy más volumen de ahí.
Si puede ser. Give me a second. As Mariano said, we should have done this before, so everything ready. Okay. Cool. Team, we're ready? Okay, I have 15 minutes. Okay, I'm Colonel Wilson, he's Maxi Calzón Alvarez, and we're going to talk about advanced refactoring with and why it's important. Okay, so why automatic refactors are important? I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to let Steve answer that. So Steve, please say us now. Can we? No, let me just sound is not working well. I'm going to do this. Okay, so why are important the automatic refactors? Steve, please.
It's a very good question, and it's got a very, very clear answer. Developers. The key to .NET, the key to industry transformation, the key to success is developers, 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 developers,
Okay.
developers.
Costs $3 billion. Is it clear? Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. So why automatic refactors are important? Because our main users are developers. And we need our small sort of tools to be up to date and compete with current IDs of other languages. If not, we will fall behind. It's happening somehow. So that's why we need better automatic refactors, better tools, because we don't want to fall behind. It used to be the best ID programming, and it should be the best one again. So I'm going to show some automatic refactors done by students at the University of Buenos Aires. I'm going to show the work of Marcelo. And the first one I want to show is the detection of repeated code based on AST equivalence. So here I have an example. So we had this behavior before, but we were using string conversion. We were comparing strings to look for similar code, and that of course doesn't work because in the previous version, this collaboration would not be seen as equivalent to this one because there are more spaces. But now, if I select this one and I want to extract, okay, I don't care about the name of the new method, it will recognize as repeated that those collaborations in the same method or different methods. Okay? So now if I refactor, I will see set keyword, and so on. It works also with many collaborations, not just with one. So I can select these two, do extract, and it will show me the same code on the same method, different method, and it takes care of, for example, selecting these two collaborations, so it will not extract the first one and the second one, it will not recognize them as repeated, but just those that are in the middle. Okay, these are different methods. And it works pretty well with very complex collaborations too. For example, we have here this comparison of years and months and whatever, on different situations, different way of formatting the code. But this one is the same code, but with different names for parameters. And sadly, that's not done yet. That's part of the future work. But if we come here and select this, we will see that it will recognize at least these two different formatting code, but are exactly the same. So it's very useful. For example, you want to do the virtual scala, and you come here and you want to make this code a little bit nicer, just a little bit, at least. You can just select this, and it will show you all the places where you can remove the code. And, for example, also, let's do it here. okay, all the places. Well, it's not shown. Yeah, all the places where that code needs to be. It's a very useful tool. It helps a lot to have better code. And this one future work mainly recognize code that is the same but with different variable names or parameter names. And we want to use that also for the struct temporary and the struct parameter factories that we already have, but we are not using the comparison yet. Another factory is the struct parameter object. The struct parameter object is one that creates a class from a set of parameters. So, for example, here I have this method, customer identification type number, and if you look at this, ID type and ID number are objects that are passed parameters all the time. So it makes sense to create a new structure for that. So instead of doing that by hand, you can stand here and do a struct parameter object, and you can select the parameters that you want to struct and create a new class, for example, customer ID. Let's call it like that. And it will, we can select the scope of the refactoring, and it will create a new class, customer ID, that is instantiated with the ID type and ID number, that has an instance variable, the ID type and ID number that were parameters, and just, it will give you the right getters and setters if you need so. In this case, we didn't need the setters. And if you look at the method, so now it's not called customer identified as, it's called ID type ID number, so we should rename this, but it's using that customer ID, so it should be called customer ID. And where it uses the ID type now is it adds the ID type to the customer ID, same ID number. Okay? So it's a very useful tool, and if you look at the senders, before we have what is it? This is what we have now. Okay, no, this one. Okay, we used to have this one, where the ID type and ID number. So this one. And now, after all the internal factors is made, we got this one that instantiates the customer ID class. Okay, what else? So there's a lot of feature work on this factoring. For example, we use existing classes. We have to improve the names of the variables and messages, and currently it doesn't support type and scoping, and we're going to do that. So, and that's all I wanted to show first. So now I think it's very good down here.
Bueno, tenemos una buena instancia de una clase bacana. Vamos a mostrarlo. Tenemos una clase acá, referencia a Cajo, que tiene varias instancias country y una instancia lisa que representa la división de esto. Para hacer el instanciable, la segunda instancia, el papel instanciable, seleccionamos cuál es la variable que referencia la clase de ti. usar. Y acá tenemos que ingresar con el tipo de la variable, pero como tenemos la lista instalado, si programamos los test o programamos cualquier colaboración, lifetime puede autocompletar este campo por nosotros. Entonces, vamos a ver esto. Vamos a mover otra vez la instancia. La técnica autocompleta ahora el nombre de la clase. De todas maneras, es autocompletable de esa forma también. Una vez ejecutado el mensaje, todas las referencias a las variables se desplazan por vectores discentes y la variable en la nave. Para el trabajo futuro, el interfaz puede ser mejorado con el interfaz que es el UNMdP. Tenemos que mejorar unas variaciones cuando existen nulos. Bueno, crear distintas referencias porque sí, en la clase de destino es algo conveniente y mover un conjunto de una instancia correctamente solo modelo. Bueno, el otro ejemplo es el book method. El book method es más conocido, se mueve un método de la clase ahora. Vamos a verlo. En este caso, en nuestra misma clase tenemos un modelo normales. Que si bien referencia siempre a la misma variable, entonces todavía debería existir en la otra clásica en esta. Para moverlo, clic derecho, nuevamente como con la variable que referencia a la clase de destino. Acá este campo puede ser autocompletado con la clase de destino. En el campo y luego de mover el método se reemplaza por una delegación para que sigan funcionando todas las referencias al método y el método vive en la clase de bueno, todas las referencias que tenía antiguamente el método a ISAP fueron reemplazadas por CEL para que el componente siga manteniendo. Bueno, como trabajo futuro de este recambio que es poder mover métodos recursivos para que no quede así una doble recursión entre dos objetos. Y el último es la clase, cuando extraemos una clase de una clase existente. Vamos a extraer lo que es la información de contacto desde el teléfono, código de área y mail, la nueva clase, seleccionamos cuáles son las variables de instancia que queremos extraer. automáticamente nos marcan azul cuáles son los métodos que utilizan esa variable de instancia. Podemos seleccionar cualquier método, pero bueno, elegimos todos. Se crea la nueva clase con la variable de instancia que seleccionamos. Se resume un método por cada método que seleccionamos. Y se crea la nueva variable de instancia para referenciar el momento. Se programa el test para mostrar que el comportamiento se mantiene. Como trabajamos con tool de extra clases, favorecer la inmutabilidad, porque quería mucho meter y ceros, porque no se la clase nueva para ver si mantener el comportamiento. Y bueno, y mejorar la performance en lo que es el movimiento de las variables, porque cada una de las variables que se mueven tiene una recopilación de toda la jerarquía para que siga funcionando.
Well, I want to mention that all these patterns were implemented as part of his thesis, his master thesis that he completely because of that. So thank you very much. All the future work, we didn't do it, or he didn't do it, because it can be done with current patterns, like inline or renames and those kind of things. So now, I have almost 50 minutes for a complex demo. So I'm going to try to voy a tratar de hacernos perder y voy a mostrar. So this is a common example I use at the university about how to write good code and use automatic refactoring to get there. So the first thing I want to show, here we have this import test. This is a set of classes that import some data from a CSV file to a database. And if we run the test, we can see they are not running. Something. Okay. They are running. And what's the thing I want to change here? This class, the test, has a reference to the database session. And all the code related to querying the database with the number of customers with certain ID and so on is in the test. And that doesn't make any sense. You should have a class that encapsulates the access to the database, so you can then implement that with different implementations like the persistent one, the transient one, and so on. So how can we do this? So what we have to do is we have to extract the session of the test and all the code related to that instance variable that is using the session. We have to move it to a new instruction that is going to represent that access to the database. So, what I'm going to do is extract class, and I'm going to create a persistent. I'm going to call it customer system. This is the name of the new variable that is going to reference the instance of persistent customer system. I'm going to call it customer system. And I'm using here the idea of having systems, something that we talked about not long ago. Gabby gave a talk many years ago in smalltaks. And I'm going to move session, and also I'm going to move all the methods related with it. The one that looks for a customer, giving an ID, the one that gives you the number of customers. I'm going to move the setup and the teardown, but not the others. So if I do this, now here we have the customer system. Persistent customer system references the session and it gives you the getters and setters and all the these messages that were moved from the test here. If you run the code, the test, everything should run, and it's running. But now we have to start doing some stuff. For example, it doesn't make sense. Well, to call this message setup, because we don't want to set up the customer system, we want to study. So what I'm going to do is at the implementation and see also why it's sending the test as a parameter. It doesn't make sense either. But it's doing that because the previous version of this method had an implicit return self. So that's why this is passing self as a parameter. So as I said, we don't need that. So I'm going to remove that variable, the data parameter, sorry. So I cannot do it, I can only remove this first, okay, let's see if it works. And I'm going to do the remove parameter. Okay, so now it's not passing itself as a parameter. Same thing here. I'm going to. It doesn't work very well. So I'm going to remove that parameter. Okay, cool. So now we don't have that. What else can we do? Well, we have the getter and the setter for the session. We can look at the senders. I'm going to look at the actual senders of the setter because it doesn't make sense for everybody to modify that. And that's only, oh sorry, I forgot to rename these messages. I'm going to call it star and stop. So now it makes more sense. Okay, cool. Again, so the standards for session are inside this class and it's in the start method, so it doesn't make any sense to have this setter. So I'm going to do inline method and I'm going to remove it. So we don't have setter anymore. And I don't want anybody to get the session outside the customer system, so I'm going to look for the senders of this. And as we can see, there are a lot of senders inside the same class, so we don't need that. We could do an inline method. But we also have these references, senders, on the test. And that's because the customer portal receives the session as a parameter when it's instantiated. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the reference to the session and to use the system as a parameter. To do that, I'm going to add a parameter that I'm going to call customer system. And this is how it's called. I want to initialize that parameter in all the senders. The senders for this message are only in the test. And the sender I want to use, the value I want to use for that, those senders is customer system. That's the name of the variable that is referencing the customer system. It could be any smalltalk collaboration here. And now I'm going to add it something like this. I don't know if you know this, but I always use the actual scope. The actual scope is a scope that is using live typing to get the right getters, to get the right senders and implement those. So now that we have this new parameter, if we look at the senders, we will see that every time we instantiate the customer portal, we are passing the customer system as a parameter. So now I have to add the same thing here in the initialization. So I'm going to add a parameter. I'm going to call it customer system. And I want to initialize that with a customer system because it's from the instance creation method. I'm going to add it as last parameter. Okay. Cool. So now I have the customer system here, so I'm going to add this as an instance variable. This is not an automatic refactoring, so I'm going to run the test to see if everything works fine. So I'm doing this because I want the test to run all the time. Okay? I'm doing all these changes using automatic refactoring because I want the test to run all the time. I don't want to have any problem when making the changes. So now that I have the customer system, I have to remove the references to the session. So I will look for the reference to it. And as we can see, there is one here and one in the initialize. So what I'm going to do is to create this reference, and I'm going to use the customer system to get the session. And see if everything works. Everything works. So now I don't need the session here. And now that I don't need the session, I can remove it as an instance variable. Now that I don't need that instance variable, I don't need this parameter anymore, so I'm going to remove that parameter. So now the message is initialized from using the customer system, and I will remove that parameter from the instance creation message. And now, if I come to the persistent customer system and look for senders of the session, there are no more senders outside the class. So I can, here, let's see. Oh, yes, sorry. And this one, I forgot that. So I have to break that up in there. Customer importer, customer import. So I have to break this here. I have to. I don't want to use the session, so how can I do that? So I want to move this collaboration to the customer system. To move this collaboration to the customer system, first I'm going to create a new method. I'm going to start to a new method at the customer. Now that I have the customer, I will move the add customer to the persistent customer system. But if we do this, it will pass the customer importer as a parameter, and I don't want that. And why is asking me for that parameter? It's asking me for that parameter because here I have a reference to an instance variable of importer. So to break this coupling, what I'm going to do is to add, to extract that instance variable as a parameter. Just in the class. So as you can see, now there is no reference to instance variables about this one. That is the customer system, but I don't care because I'm going to move this method to the customer system. That is an instance of persistent customer system. And so we have a customer that sends the message at customer to the customer system, and we don't need this anymore. I can do an inline of that method. So import customer sends the add customer message to the customer system, and it works. And now I can come here, look for the senders of session, and the senders are only inside the persistent customer class. So I don't need this method anymore, so I'm going to do inline. And after that, there are no more getters and setters for session. So I can remove that and everything should work So, okay, that was the complex demo. I hope I didn't lose you. I guess I did. But anyway, the idea was to show you something complex that you can do in 50 minutes or less if you're not doing a demo with automatic refactorings, and to think how long you want to do that by hand. So, based on ChatGPT data, automatic refactoring increases productivity between 30% and 20%. I asked ChatGPT for the, where did you get that from? It gave me some things, but they don't talk about that. So I don't know if you believe that or not. But based on my experience, automatic refactorings really increase your productivity, and we need more refactorings. In the case of quiz, we need to improve the refactorings we have and the user interface and the user experience. And we need also to implement the undo refactorings. And to do this, we need time, and time is money. So if you want to help us, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if there is time for question or not. Just one question. Okay. I don't have a mic.
The extract method is really interesting.
Yeah.
And in my experience, you find often that part of the parse tree is you've created several methods, but some sub-node of the parse tree is not. You might want to extract that code parameter, and that becomes a block item. So in the sender, how you're invoking this common method with map 3 or 4 methods down to finding that you identify, oh, there's this subpart of the tree is different from all methods.
Yeah.
So I hope that we're going to really push this idea of more flexible matching of parse trees, and we don't look for identical things. My experience is never identical.
Yeah, that's right. That was one of the goals of Marcelo's thesis, but we didn't have the time. This is work, and there's a lot to improve, but it's working really great. But the next step on that would be to recognize those kind of trees, parse trees that are not equal but similar, and that's part of the next.
And then one last thing is that there's a great weakness in the sweep freeze file that's still there. If you're doing line programming, if you move instance variables, then you lose the state because that's still down modified one pass at a time.
Yeah, but
we really need somebody to do the work to make that still there.
Well,
the whole hierarchy.
Okay, if you move it in the hierarchy, well, if you move it in the hierarchy, yes, you're going to lose. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about it. That's a great idea.
Analysis.
Analysis. And I think these are all very good.
Yes. One is, can you confirm? So you are using the ASD as DSL, and you are using it only for identical.
To look
in some slide, I saw that you said that you were talking about the names of the variables, like the.
Like
what
here,
is that? Yeah. Why don't you detect that?
Because when comparing the literal variable node, the name of the variable is not the same as B. So we have to look for a way to, when comparing, say, okay, they're not the same name, but they're using the same place, the same semantics. And that's a little bit complex to do, but it's in the future world.
And the other question is, I see that all the refactorings have this intermediate confirmation step. You have that page. Do you use it or just for checking? Or do you have this intermediate step instead of applying the refactoring?
Yeah, that's a good question. For example, if you want to name this method, it shows you this is what you're talking about.
if you want to. This is because you can remove or add senders and implementers, just in case the tool didn't find anything. The truth is, I never use it. I always press refactor. Okay, so it's still there, but maybe we have like an setting or something, and just like typing and do it.
No, I asked because I've seen files, they have more or less the same utility step. They gather all the changes composed in the refactoring, and you can select which of the changes you want to apply.
Yeah. No, I agree. The problem is that, when looking for implementers and senders, dynamically type language, that you don't always get the right ones. With live typing, if you do the things well enough, it will be like working with a static type language, and you don't need this kind of confirmation. But, that's something that we have to keep trying and see if we can improve it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's time for a break. 20 minutes.
está la fecha de la reunión, pero...
Sí, reunión y examen.
Justo elegimos la fecha de Facultad. Pero vos sabés que eso nos pasa muy seguido. Y tenemos un check ahí que dice, además, que no, que nos olvidamos, pero además, por más que lo cuidamos, nosotros no decidimos. No, obvio.
Está decir que si están contando
Smalltalk conferences. The project is now online. You can download it. It is a programming language for children, a visual programming language for children. I will make a little introduction to the project. I will make a demo. I will talk a little bit about the implementation, very little, and talk about challenges to the works, etc. of the project. So, well, this is the webpage. You can download it. And well, I will show things I already showed previously. This is an old version, the first version I presented in a Smalltalk 2 years ago. Then I made a workshop with children at the University of Buenos Aires. I tested this prototype. I had some feedback and created a new version of it. Again, different children use them. They can create simulations and also program more abstract models. And well, this year I opened it for the public, and I also made some performance as an actor with my son at an event called dia1, maybe you know it, for children. And well, this was the launching of the project this year. So, well, I implement this using Smalltalk, using quiz Smalltalk. Well, some statistics. I have 3 lines per method. I don't know if this is good or bad for you. Well, I have my tests. I also, well, yesterday we were discussing with Christian about testing the visual elements, and well, I tell him that I simulate some visual elements so I can test also the visual model. Well, something about how I make it an application for to put it on the web. So just a little thing to show. So I used last year with Maxi here, Maxi. We talked about how can we make some prototype to well, like an image, it can be downloaded and used it by others. And he told me that he was using Faro for this project because we didn't have that kind of support. So, well, I was working with Wish and I didn't want it to move, so I made my own way to create. It became a project, an application. So it's my own creation, and well, I ran an evaluated expression, and the image became this. This is the actual product that children will use. Well, they download it, they use it. I will make now a little demo. I wanted to mention this implemented aspect only to open some discussions later. Hey, how you do it? Well, I'm open for that, open for ideas about how to do it. I will make a little demo. I want to show you how this environment works. Well, this is the main editor. The essence of this programming language is that you program through your own drawings. So I will make a drawing, I will make an ant. You start with your drawing, and then you throw the drawing. You can throw it several times, and you can create rules. Now this is the definition. of the program. Well, this is the program, and now I can control my hand with the keyboard. So, well, I can create also like the hand leader, create a hand, which is the leader. Special hand will be the leader. I want to use it, to move it, and I want other hands to follow him, to follow the hand. So the hand leader pulls other hands. So now a hand follows the leader, and also the hand pulls other hands. And in this way I can build some sort of training or warm hands. So let's say we want to create the enemy of these hands. And we may know about this enemy. It's the famous ant eater. We can create the enemy, we can throw it. We can say that this enemy runs around this space. So here I have the ant eater and my train of ants. There are two phenomena that are parallel. Yeah, we didn't talk about parallelism. There are no syntax special for parallelism, but since things run in parallel or concurrent in real life, well, they can be expressed that way in this language. As you know, it has no starting point. So parallelism arises naturally. Well, now we can create a rule. The ant eater, when it touches an ant or collisions with an ant, we want the ant to be eaten, so we can say that the ant is teleported to black hole, nowhere. So now it touches an ant, and well, and disappear. But if this anteater touches the leader of the ants, will not eat it. We can make it run to the ant and will not eat it. So we can create another rule. We can say anteater or collisions to the leader of the ant, etc. Or we can say that the ant leader is categorized by the notion of ants. So it's a particular ant. So here we created a category, a prototype-based category, and well, now if the anteater goes to the ant, we will eat it. So it is, as you see, like a game engine. You can create your own games. The game and the definition of the game can interact with it. So here we have a sheep that wants to go to the grass, and if the sheep moves, changes the rule, it can go out and to the grass. So as you can see, the simulation can change its own definition. Here it's Pac-Man with very few rules. You can create your own Pac-Man, and it has a teleport. Can be if the ghost touches the Pac-Man starts again. It's a very simple Pac-Man. As you can see, very simple rules, very few rules. Well, also you can work with abstract entities. You can implement, or the children can implement numbers, addition of numbers. Here I have some numbers drawn: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. An arrow up, an arrow down. The arrow up represents the next. The next of 1 is 2, the next of 2 is 3, and the arrow down is previous. Previous of 2 is 1. And here I use the notion of categorization. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are categorized by this abstract notion of number. So let's say we want to make an addition, 1 plus 4, and we want to see the result. So we use dia1. 1 plus 4 is 1 plus 4 because there is no substitution for that defined yet. So we will define a substitution: 1 plus the notion of number, any number. It is the next of that number. As you can see, I changed the definition and the evaluation changes. So, alright, 1 plus 4 is 5. Very good. Now, 2 plus 3. Let's see the definition. 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3. So I need to, again, create a new definition of number, which will be a more a recursive definition. We have defined the base case here: 1 plus a number, and now a number plus a number will be the previous of the first one plus the next of the second one. Now, there is no need for applause. Well, you imagine how this execution works, no? In your head you can reconstruct it, but maybe we can see. Why do we have to use our head to reconstruct? We can see the execution, what is called debugging in some sense. And here is the execution: 2 plus 3. It is transformed to this substitution rule. Then the previous of 2, 1 plus the next of 4 or 3, 4, and then the original addition with the base case. So as you can see, things like recursion can be introduced in very simple way, very fast. There is no notion of variables. There are all other things that in some language appear that here we don't need to talk about. There is only two relations in this language: substitution and categorization. And with these two combinators, you can build your programs, abstract programs like numbers. So, well, that was the introduction. As I told you 2 months ago, I opened this for everyone to use. You can download it. If you have children, you can use it with your children and give feedback. I encourage you to do it.
What's the URL?
Sorry?
What's the URL? The URL?
Represent.r. That's the URL. Because the philosophy of this project is like that programming is about representing creative models. Well, that's the name of the project, but it's a conceptual name. I wanted to put it. Few words and challenges are, for instance, create content in the videos, tutorials, etc., for people to understand this language, use it, and to develop this point of view in programming and creating representations to teach the core notions of programming, like recursion. Also, as I show numbers, Booleans can be implemented. So logic, which is classical logic used in programming, can be presented for children in a constructive way. They can construct the Booleans. I showed that 2 years ago in a previous small. Well, immediate feedback is a characteristic of this language, and parallelism concurrence is also a characteristic that, well, I think is very important. And the other characteristic, which is part of the philosophy of smalltalk, is what you see is what you get. You draw, you throw, and you create the environment of your characters, like this Pac-Man I showed. You create it by throwing the drawings, etc., and you play with that you did. So, if someone wants to participate, create challenges, and we can put it here. This version works in Mac, Linux, and Windows. It doesn't work in Android, iOS. So, if someone likes to program in the low level of the virtual machine and can participate and help making this run in a cell phone or a tablet, I'm happy to invite you to participate. And I want to present a challenge. Last year we said we have to make some games, we have to have some fun. How can we do it? Well, here's a challenge for the hackers, this model. The challenge is I want to see the source code of my project. You download it from the represent.r webpage. There is an image file. You will get it. There are the representative files. You will find an image file, and from there, find the source code. Show it to me. I buy a drink for the one that shows me the source code, and a drink for the one that can make it run in a model image, run the test, etc. Another drink, 2 drinks of your choice. So the challenge for the ones that like to program or believe in themselves, like
what kind of beer? I want to know if it makes sense.
Beer, you said?
What kind of beer? Yeah, what kind of beer? Because if
what kind of beer do you like?
What kind of beer?
Zero alcohol.
The best one.
If you want zero alcohol, we'll do zero alcohol.
Can we change it with my black?
You can change it for a coffee. If you don't drink alcohol, you can change it for like tea. So, well, I hope someone gets emotional about the challenge and make it. Well, thank you very much.
I have a question.
It's about the drink.
It's about the beer, yeah.
Beer, you call it beer.
Beer and wine.
Means beer.
So, you tried this with kids, you show us that you did. But after that, have you tried again? Do you see that the kids get a good sense of programming? What do you see after they use it?
Well, I tried more systematically or in a classroom context last year a version of the language. I didn't make that again. I plan to do it again. I'm working with a colleague, also student at the University of Buenos Aires. He's now focusing on that, on the research about didactic aspects and the use of this language on a curricula. So he will be leading this
future classroom experiences. So I can tell you that I see some children in an informal way using this current version, but not in a school, not in a workshop open for the community as I did last year.
I have another question. So, you know that there are other tools for teaching programming to kids, like
Yes.
Scratch and e-toys and so on. So, what do you think is the main difference? I mean, there are pretty clear differences, but why do you choose this way of programming instead of having blocks or, you know, like the other Scratch, e-toys do? Why do you select this idea?
Well, I believe if we consider that programming is the model to create representations, and you imagine something you want to create, first start with the drawing. It's a good way to start. You can draw in other tools also. But the drawings are also the symbols you use to program. They are not all the symbols and that, but there are some predefined drawings, predefined symbols. But they are also the symbols used. Well, the simplicity of this language. There are no primitive categories. There are not primitive types like in Scratch. We have booleans, numbers, and strings as primitive types, and it's very hard to create new categories. And here you don't need these primitive categories. You can build it by your own. You can have all that you want. You can create the category of ant if you want. So it's simple but very powerful in terms of categorization. Well, there are notions like variables, etc. that they are not absent here. There is no need for them. You can represent the idea of a variable with a substitution. Some symbol is substituted by another sequence, and that's a variable. You don't need to introduce another concept. You can go directly to core concepts of computing. I believe core concepts of computing like Carson. Turing and Church together they said that was the essence of computing. We may think it's not the essence right now. Maybe the essence is about representing or modeling, but it's a very core idea of programming, and here you can go for it very fast, in a very easy way.
With the different symbols, you can create equivalences and basically have everything defined in its own terms. But you have state in the situation.
The notion of state.
Yes.
Well, your state could be a substitution. You can create, again, if you use it as a variable or you can create a list, there are some list models here. And this list is changed. Here, I think we have I don't know, it's one. This was made by Agustin, the other Agustin. The goals should go to the first element of this list. The list is changing the first element. You can have some sort of state, and in a way, I know it is similar to functional programming in some ways. And in functional programming, you may consider that when you add a new function, well, you change the state. And here you can dynamically create substitutions, or change them. So in that way you can represent some sort of state. How to check that bug on this project.
Well done.
No
more time.
No more time. Okay.
One more question.
Last question.
Okay.
I wanted to know if you have a mechanism to share the programs. I think in the classroom experience, it would be nice for kids to share their projects with others.
Yes, there is a way to share, very, very elementary. You put a name to the project, you push here, and well, file is created. Here. Here. And eternally you can send this file and you can throw it to a new you throw it to the environment and load. This is the way to share. Very simple way to share. Not online, not a social network yet. Well, thank you very much.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Imagine that you have a large set of data that you need to process every day, and this process that you need to do every day takes longer and longer, and it consumes a large amount of the infrastructure available for the platform you're working with, causing it for the end user to have lower performance for the task the user wants to solve, and this eventually causes for the user to complain about the slowness of the platform, or even worse, for the user to stop using the platform altogether. Good morning to you all. My name is Facultad, and I am here to talk about our distributed processing framework on smalltaks. But first, we are OpenPath. OpenPath is a company with a platform that builds digital ecosystems with embedded finance solutions on a global scale, we offer a turnkey solution that addresses various needs and can adapt to any industry and or business. We have clients in Argentina, Paraguay, Brazil, Mexico, and Guatemala. The team is built of almost 200 members, working in multiple locations with a diverse perspective and problem-solving skills. So, in order to solve the problem I mentioned earlier, the solution we developed is a distributed framework that allows us to divide the large amount of data into smaller chunks or pieces that will send to different nodes of the computer to be processed and then wait for the result of each task. This eventually, what it does is allows us to work in parallel with all these processes at the same time. Now,
the slides should be moving.
Sorry. Sorry. I thought you.
Now it makes sense.
Thank you. I did not realize. So the framework that we have is built of different key factors, and it has a few constraints. So for the key constraints that we have is that the data that we are processing does not require a piece of the same data previously processed. So they need to be, every set of data that we process needs to be individual and does not require any set that is previously. And also it's important that we need to generate an final report that we do not have access to the same read file at the same time. So we need to have this in mind for the processing. As for the key factors that the framework we build tasks, we have a node, a blackboard, a task, a chunk, an exchange, and a set of configurations. So what are all these things I just mentioned? And that's a great question. So a node will be the simple processing power of the framework. It has a small talking running, and it's connected to an exchange, which I'll explain in a few seconds. Next, we have a blackboard, which is essentially a queue of all the tasks that need to be processed. We'll reference one blackboard for one node, and we'll reference this as a local blackboard for set node. Once we have this instance of the node running, we'll be able to create a set of tasks. These tasks will have a parent task, which will own all the subsequent children tasks that have the specific code to process the information that we need to process. It has also a few sets of configurations, so it has a configuration for in which way we are to process the tasks that we have. It has a task receiver, which will be the task information for the process, a task result, a task error, and that would be like a simple way of saying what a task has. Then we have a chunk, which will be the piece of data that we divided into each task. So let's say that you need to process 100 lines. You have a chunk of 10, and you will have 10 tasks. This is the amount of this would have the lines of file of the main process. Sorry. And finally, the exchange, which will be a farm that is connected to the local blackboard. This works as as a broadcast system that will share every event generated through the local platform in the node to the farm, and every connected node to the farm will understand these event messages and will share this to the platform as an event task. So the framework we're seeing, and essentially, as I said before, we receive the file and we divide it into these chunks that we generate. We'll generate a parent task, which will own all the subsequent children tasks. These children tasks will be instantiated one by one, and once these tasks are shared to the farm as the event, every node of the farm connected to it will understand this task event, and will add them to its local platform queue. This will essentially make every local platform has a copy of every task on the row. So once we need to process these tasks, they will essentially begin to process them from their local queue. Once we begin the process, we'll select from each platform. We'll update the task on a table on a database, shared database, so that any other local platform does not try to process this same task instantiated before. Once all of these tasks are being processed and they receive the task result, this will generate a new finalized event to send to the main local platform, so the one that had the parent task, in order to receive all the results of the tasks and understand them and finish the final process. So this was our original framework, but it had a few key factors that made it not reliable to work with. We found that every once in a while a task will fail for some reason. We have a few of those. For example, if the data that we are trying to process had an error, then that task would not finish, essentially consuming that node and not freeing it so that another task can take that node, be processed on that node, and the process would never finish, right? Because you never receive finalized event for this task, and that would essentially cause for the process to run infinitely. So one of the key modifications that we made is that instead of updating the task on database, so that this information, so that each task knows where it's being processed, we changed it so that we use an uncached system that has the status and a timestamp of each task. So once we share this information with all of the nodes, then we have the status and the timestamp where it has been updated, and the node that it's fully processed on. Aside from this, we added a time limiter for the task. So once we begin the process of each task, this task will have a configurable time limit in order to be processed. If it takes longer than this, then the process will be stopped and the task will be reviewed so that we can free that node and continue working on the process. Essentially, this task has a limit. This task has a limit of re-executions, so once it reaches its limit, we will return a task error and it will continue the process as a whole and will prove out that the error that we had on said task. So essentially this allows us to process the most amount of data and record whichever we have in which lines. So we understand essentially which particular issue we have. Essentially, our framework is a continuing working process, work in progress. We still have several issues that we have detected that we need to still fix in order for it to work continuously. But it's really fun and really interesting, but it's really hard to understand it. It took me a long time to get a hang of it and to think of this all of these solutions that we process that I just told you. If you'd like to see a demo, please come find me after. So it's not wide up yet, so I'll show you later. And please, if you have any questions, just ask.
So, am I right in thinking that you, at the start of the system, you have so many nodes, and you have essentially processes on each node, small processes on each node, with one defined task. So how do you avoid conflict as all of the tasks try and access the blackboard and choose the task that they're going to start?
So every node has a local blackboard, and then we'll get a local blackboard, which will be any other node available. So they all receive a copy of the task that they require. And the issue I think you're trying to ask is what happens when two tasks are trying to be processed at the same time.
No, I'm asking what part of the system makes the decision as to which node. If they all get their own copy of the local blackboard, do they get the same blackboard, or do they get different blackboards? If they get different blackboards, what is it that is giving different information to the nodes, and what criteria does it use to do that?
No, they have different blackboards, and if you think about it, there's no criteria. The only control that we previously had was the database report that marked that, like, I don't know, the blackboard one was processing this task. What this task was many queries through the database, and this would sometimes limit the full connection of the database to all the connection. Essentially doesn't process the data. What we do now is we check the status on the memcache system, so that would be like the control, of the task where it's being executed now and whatnot. Does this answer your question, sir?
So if I understood, the idea is you have a huge processing scenario, you want to split your task in multiple tasks so that you can spawn multiple images to process that data, right? That's more or less the idea. So the question is, the nodes concept that you explained, could that be, I'm thinking about physical nodes, like a machine, right?
Yes.
So, you're able to have multiple nodes. Your concept of node inside one machine, can spawn 10 images on the same machine, but also on other machines, it goes via TCP, like you can have multiple physical nodes as well.
Yes, you're effectively running an implementation of a Docker container with each image, so we can have as many equipment as we want.
Yeah, I want to know what technology you're using, which model, and if you go the whole communication between the things, or using a framework or a native thing.
dia1, which is the foreign exchange.
Okay.
And every event is going through an HTTP protocol. Yes.
Okay. And the small talk is?
What dialect do you use?
That's a great question.
Fast.
We use fast.
Fast.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Vamos a ir a comer. I think it's time for lunch, isn't it? Okay. Okay, it's time for lunch. Will be come back at 2. Okay? Not 3, not 2:30. 2. Not 4:30. Bueno, vamos a comer a algún lugar, Juli. Porque no queríamos agregar un nuevo modelo y mantener